Welcome to the TryPod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. But tonight we're actually breaking down Origin 1. I've sprung this on you early, guys. I knew I had to get the show out. I was thinking maybe Monday night, maybe Tuesday night, but it just sort of occurred to me that once round 12 was done, even though it was a mental round, that everyone's just going to be thinking about Wednesday night. So let's just combine the shows. I've got, as you can see, Benny Howard from Benny and the Bets is going to join me. We might have the Padonis dipping in too. So I'm really excited to get some outside voices on this massive game, see how the lads see it. In fact, the breaking news today was Galvin. So why don't we start there? Benny, welcome. Thanks for jumping in. What's your take on the Galvin situation and where would you play him for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, so I think we were talking about that earlier. I don't know, really. It's a bit of a hard one because they're going so well but I did hear that apparently Burton will move to the fullback and then Galvin will slot in for Sexton. So, yeah, I wonder if that's how they're going to play it. But, yeah, I'm not too sure. It's going to be interesting, though.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. It's an indictment on the Tigers because he knocked back $6 million for 5 years. So that's at 1.2 a year. He's getting closer to $700K a year. That's $500,000 a year less to leave the club you're at. I thought he'd be getting close to $1 million a season, even if he left. So it wasn't a big question of money. I also thought, can you knock the kid? He's a Parramatta fan, lifelong fan. You know, his family. Obviously, there's a connection with the agent, Moses, and you can play alongside Mitch Moses there. As Padonis is in the chat as well. So we can ask Padonis how he reads the Galvin situation. Welcome, Padonis. So then I just thought the Eels was a done deal, right? But he's got, and then when he gets the mid-season release, I thought maybe you're going Dogs because of premiership window. You go there for just this year or the next two, and then you get the longer term. But he's gone, 3.5 years with the Dogs. And then the other question is, where do you play him? I think, to me, I play him at 7. I just feel like as much as Sexton hasn't done anything wrong, that's probably the best upside. And I think Galvin could adapt to be a 7. I just don't want to move Burton out of 5'8" and left side of the ruck because of that kicking game. I've heard Burton to fullback. I have a question about his mobility. The outside of the box suggestion would be you move Burton to left centre, you move Cherry to right centre, you play Stephen Crichton at fullback. Don't tell me he wouldn't be phenomenal there. I know everyone says, Crichton's like the best centre. Yeah, so was Greg Inglis, you know what I mean? But they still can impact the game more at fullback. But if you play Burton at left centre, are you mitigating his kicking game a little bit? Welcome, Padonis. And jump in straight on that, mate, the breaking news today. How do you see the Galvin scenario?
Yeah, definitely a shocking one for me. If I had my money on a team, I definitely would have picked Parramatta. Just felt like it was more of a fit there. I guess going to the Bulldogs, they're coming first. It's a easy way to get straight and parachute into the top 4. But I'm with you. I don't think that their roster at the moment really accommodates Galvin. And I think for this year, I don't think the Bulldogs are going to want too much disruption. And I think for the rest of the season, we're probably going to see him playing either off the 14 jersey or in that roaming lock role. Maybe he'll play in the 13. I just don't think that they'll move on Sexton and Burton right now, given that they are top of the table.
Yeah, and he could play 13 if he grows into it. He'd probably have to improve his defense. But the Dogs have got quite a few capable locks as well. Like Salmon's done well. Kurt Mann is in the Queensland squad. Bailey Hayward off the bench. It's like the last thing they really need is a lock. So it's a strange fit, but I always think if you can get talent for a pretty good market value, you don't second guess it. You just bring in the great player who's only going to get better into that system, and you'll find a way to make it work. So my tip would be that he'll actually become the halfback, which then is harsh on Sexton. But as there's a comment there, if you push someone else to fullback, it's tough on Tracy because these guys have had good years. They are leading the competition. I was also thinking, if Matty Burton ever figures out he can make 3 times as much money punting in the NFL, then you got your 5/8 cover right there. That's where Galvin can play his natural position. Now, since we're on the Dogs, let's start quick recap of round 12, but we've got to go really quick because I think people care more about Origin. So my Finns are playing the Dogs, and it's 8-8 just before halftime. Next thing you know, the final score is 44-8. Wider trend. Every underdog won this week. But look, the game we just watched was 50-50 and it was tight. But the previous 4 underdogs were all genuine, like converted try or more underdogs. They all won by 19 or more. And I think we've done a good job on the pod foreshadowing that, talking about more extreme results than ever, talking about how to make the most money you can punting, you want to actually bet on the extreme results. If you like a team, and 2 of my best bets were Para and Newcastle, bet them for the outright upset, bet them with a margin. I've mentioned that these extreme runs of momentum, they do lead to crazy comebacks. Remember, we had that weekend where there was multiple 20-point comebacks. But I said sometimes you're going to get a team with a game where the favourite wins the first half 30-0 and wins the second half 30-0. And you sort of saw that with Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. But what you're also going to get is occasionally a big underdog actually win by a margin just because of the ability to harness momentum and the style of footy these days. And I also, one more point that I had was, I actually think sometimes favourites are more susceptible to get smoked in a blowout because when they find themselves down a couple of tries, they're stunned because they went into the game thinking we're going to win. When they fall down 2 or 3 tries, they have to abandon the game plan. So the Bulldogs find themselves down 2 tries to the Finns. What's going on? And they sort of lose the plot. And same thing happened to Melbourne. It's almost the opposite. If you're the Dolphins and you're down 12 points to Melbourne, you're like, that's okay. We know they're a good team. We're not going to panic. So sometimes it's almost the teams that should win that drop their bundle even further. For Donis, what was your sort of takeaways from the weekend? You can key in on that Bulldogs game or just any of the massive upsets.
Yeah, all good, Winnie. I just think holistically across the round then, 4 of those games you just mentioned with the underdogs winning big, in 3 of those, you had the Sharks, you had Manly, and you had the Dogs arguably had their best wins of the season the week prior. So it does show that it can take a toll. If you're just down 2 or 3% in the NRL at the moment, doesn't matter who you are, where you are on the ladder, you are every chance if that team isn't at 100%, and you can take advantage of some of those momentum calls that we do see. That was my biggest probably takeaway from the round, given the fact that some of those favourites were favourites for a reason, but perhaps they lost a bit of focus with some of the magnitude of the wins, especially the Dogs. And that's one that probably regret not betting on 2 weeks in a row, massive comebacks, hit a bit of a flat spot without all their Origin players. And just quickly talking about the Panthers-Knights game, because that one was one I shared my bet of the week. So unfortunately, did like the Knights, took either team 1-12, got beat there. So my record on the live pod is at 9-2. But at least I'm sort of seeing him in the right ballpark, like the underdog. At least it wasn't the favourite that smashed me.
No, you're still going awesome, mate. I think I've got both you boys in off a loss, but you're both having outstanding years. So you're 9-2 on shared plays. Have we done it? No, 8-2. Is it? We've done 10 weeks, I think.
Sorry, yeah, 8-2, yeah.
And Benny, you're usually working in the window where I get the clip. Unfortunately, we haven't got as many from you, but you are sharing in the group. I know you also copped the L, and it was in the Thursday night game.
It was
0%. Was that your first loss of the year?
Yeah. For my tips, yeah, they are. And yeah, I'm still on 0-1, I think, for the live TryPod tips. I need to get off the duck.
And what are you in the group?
The year. Don't want to be doing a nudie run. So
what's your record in your weekly tip in the group?
Oh, sorry, mate. I think it's 7-1 now.
7-1, 8-2. So who better to join me to talk Origin, guys? But yeah, my last point on Finns, Dogs, people will say, oh, the Dogs are missing a bunch of guys. The Dolphins actually also had 5 or 6 key players out. Finns, the Dogs, as you said, put on, is definitely looking towards their bye week now. And the game that we just watched, if we're kind of happy that, we've covered, some crazy upsets there. And look, people were saying, hey, great call on Knights. And I said, I think they'll win and they could win by a margin. I say, thank you. Yeah, good. It was a good call by me. And then the very next game, I said Cronulla would win easy. And Cronulla lost by 26 points. So I'm like, I'll take your praise, but I've also equally got that so badly wrong. The Sharks were horrendous. The Roosters had all these players out. Sharks, no Origin players. Make that make sense to me. I almost feel like you don't want to dwell on those games for too long because you can't completely explain them. But I will say, if you get one right and one wrong, but you're betting on margins and longer odds, that's fine. Brent messaged in the group and said he backed Eels 19 plus and Knights 19 plus, and he hit in consecutive games at $17 and $12 odds. So good on you, Brent. You know, that's how you go after those extreme results. The game today, boys, looked like the New Zealand Warriors were in control at 8-0, and the Raiders get a man in the bin just before halftime. But from that point onwards, the Raiders actually outscored New Zealand 16-2. And I've just got to say the Raiders are a gun team. They look every bit a top 14 to me because that was a tough trip. How did you see that one, Benny? Did you catch that game?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I was watching bits and pieces of it. Yeah, I'm sort of spewing because I thought it would be going unders that game, but I thought maybe the Raiders would leak some. I tipped the Warriors, but yeah, another underdog. I guess they're paying $2. Yeah, just tough to win in NZ, and they've got it done. So especially in the Warriors, I think they're on a 5-0 streak or 4-0 streak. I think the Warriors. So yeah, to go in NZ
Well,
get the win.
I think they've won 6 in a row now after today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, only one loss since losing to the Raiders in Vegas. What do you reckon, Padonis? Oh, sorry. What did you say? The Warriors. The Warriors lost. Sorry, today. So they were 5-0 going into it. In my mind, I started to think they'd won the game, but the Raiders got it there in the end. What do you see there, Padonis?
Yeah, on the back of 8-0 up, as you said, in the first half with the man advantage, definitely the Vegas revenge was on there. Sadly for Warriors fans, Canberra came back and they were too gritty overall. I just want to touch on the fact that anyone who took the Warriors first half line, I feel sorry for you. You're winning 8-6. There's 10 seconds left, and there's a pretty shit line dropout attempt from the Warriors that not only does it go out on the full, but because it goes out 30 meters away, it's a non-contestable dropout. So Raiders squared it up at 8-all. With no time on the clock left, they kicked the penalty goal to go 8-all at half time. So I think the first half line was like 0.5 for the Warriors there. And that was probably one angle that I did like. If I did like the Warriors, because I just felt that with missing two key props there, obviously Fisher Harris suspension, Barnett in Origin, Canberra probably were going to come over the top with their forward pack late. So if you'd like the Warriors, probably would have said go to the first half, and would have been unlucky for anyone there. But it was a great game, and definitely two teams that are definitely going to be playing finals, I think, with that intensity if they keep that up for the rest of the season. And yeah, Canberra definitely top 4 team. And with an up and down comp, the way we've seen it so far, you wouldn't put a line through anyone at the moment, maybe except for the Panthers. But Canberra fans, your team could definitely be close to a premiership.
How crazy is that to say? The Panthers are the ones that have won 4 in a row. Yeah, I went into today, especially with the 2 props out for New Zealand, thinking Raiders are the better team. But New Zealand's been on the road for like a month. They'll come out strong. I also thought New Zealand's the first half play. Raiders could finish stronger. And, it did sort of play out that way. But I think also, did the ball go out in the full? Or I know Pompey was about 3 meters offside. He just started running before. But I also think Metcalf sort of double clutched the kick. So it was a disaster. And I was thinking the same, Padonis, like the halftime line was half a point. If you had Raiders half a point, that won you the bet. I know I looked for a best bet. If I could have got Raiders plus half a try on Tuesday, it was $1.75. Like, would have played that. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Let's move into Origin then, boys. And it's at Suncorp, but it's the Blues who are 2.5-point favorites. The total is 39.5. I've got sort of some of my notes, and I might just share them and then let you guys respond, and of course bring up any other angles that you have. But to me, as I put up the team lists on the screen, it's clear that the Blues are the better team. And I thought the Blues were clearly superior last year when you consider they lose one game where they get someone sent off 7 minutes in, dominate game 2. They beat Queensland game 3, although it was tight for 65 minutes. They were the clear winners. And everyone says, well, Queensland didn't have Munster last year. Queensland didn't have Tino. Let's not forget that last year, the Blues didn't have Latrell Mitchell, who's never lost an Origin series. And the Blues didn't have Nathan Cleary, who was the best player on the planet. So on a real sort of surface level layer there, Padonis, can you just sum up how much better you think New South Wales is than Queensland, let's say, if it's on a neutral, just purely on personnel available?
Yeah. So we look at the line last year, and in a game 3, winner take all, the spread was pretty much the same as where it is now. So Origin home crowds to me sort of indicate 3.5 to 4 points, a bit more than a normal regular season game. So what the market is trying to tell us is that the Blues are probably a 6.5 point better team on a neutral. Looking through the lineups, they're definitely the stronger team. They have obviously the better spine, I feel. They've got 2 of the best players in the world in Moses and Cleary. The forward pack does have an advantage. They're a bigger team. I think Queensland, they've obviously picked with people that have done the job for them in the past. They've got a more of a mobile pack, similar to how the Dogs probably play. And I definitely see Queensland trying to come in with a game plan of keeping the ball in play for as long as possible, trying to churn over the clock, make the forwards work for the Blues, and try to input some fatigue into the game. That's the way that I do see it playing out. But if you're looking at the 2 teams, yes, the Blues are the better team. But if you don't think that they're better by 6 points, then Queensland would be appealing on the handicap spread, because I definitely think that coming into the game, losing a series at home, knowing that if you lose, you're probably done, that it's sort of a kitchen sink spot for the Maroons.
Yeah, let's get into what Queensland might have going for them soon. But Benny, you also agree, I know you're wearing a Blues jersey there, that the Blues, just the list alone, is fair bit stronger. And can you talk about where you see the biggest advantages?
Yeah, without trying to talk with bias, obviously. But yeah, I think like Padonis said, all over the park, the Blues are probably better. It's just the culture of Queensland you're coming up against, and then at Suncorp. I think those are the 2 things that the Blues don't have. Well, yeah, definitely don't have at home, but the culture for Queensland, they've always had that there. Whereas, the series where we had the best, team we've ever had when we lost, we didn't have the culture there. Obviously, the players weren't turning up. They weren't playing as hard as the Queenslanders. So, but yeah, it's hard coming off of a loss first at Suncorp. It's a hard game for to cap, really.
Yeah, where I look at, all right, if you say the Blues are the better team, what's Queensland got going for them? I'd say I also had the fact coming off that loss and the fact that it was handed to them at Suncorp, there is that extra edge you're going to play with, sort of like New South Wales had last year, where they were the ones coming off, in fact, a couple of successive series defeats. So how does Billy Slater respond to that? And I do think advantage Queensland. I believe Billy Slater is the greater coach than Laurie Daly. I know Daly's got Bellamy in his corner, but I think Billy can outcoach Laurie, and obviously has to. What you said, Padonis, home advantage does really matter, right? The crowd, the inspiration, but also the influence on the referee. Now, there's no fear for New South Wales. We know they're capable of doing it last year, but it's still a tall task to come in and do it again. Tinfoil hat, NRL probably prefers a Queensland win here. It's got the much better chance of ending in a decider, because I'm going to get to what I think might happen if the Blues win game 1. I'll touch on that later. So anything else you want to bring up, Padonis, in terms of where you think Queensland can win the game?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier. Where I think Queensland have their best chance is to tire out the forwards for the Blues and then really rely on Harry Grant going through the ruck and playing quite direct. I think he's their point of difference player. When I look across the other spine members and some of the outside backs, it's a wash or the Blues have the edge, whereas I think Hooker's the only real advantage for Queensland compared to Reece Robson. I think Harry Grant's on just another level. And I think without Ben Hunt this year, he's going to play a lot more minutes in 9. So he could end up playing 80 minutes. So I think the onus is really going to be on him to take advantage of the quick play the balls and try to bring some support players with him and just try to go through the Blues and use a bit of pace and agility around the ruck. That's my biggest edge for the Maroons, and trying to rely on that fatigue factor.
Benny, other than sort of intangibles that we've covered on the footy field, like who has to step up for the Maroons to win this?
Oh, I reckon it's probably going to be Robert Toya. It's make or break, really. If Latrell gives them a bath, they're not going to win, I think. So if they get down there and Latrell's just getting over easy, it's going to be hard. But you never know. I think he's a debutant, so we're not going to know what he's going to be like until he gets there. But being a debutant's usually a lot easier said than done. And, the pressure at the Origin level is going to be insane for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I say New South Wales clearly have the better team, because I look at the back five, I say all 5 of them frighten me. All of them can win you the game. And people might not think Edwards is highlight reel player, but he's everywhere. He links with the halves well. When they get a favourable split, he can be the one who actually has the assist or can beat a defender that's moving backwards, where I feel like Queensland's got, how many superstars have they got in the outside backs? Like, I would say Ponga, Hammer, and Xavier Coates can come up with a moment of brilliance. But Toya, as a Queenslander, you're just hoping he survives the game, as you say, and doesn't get a bath out there, Benny. And Val, at this point, and moving to a wing where he hasn't played for a few years, he's a little older, you just want him to be reliable, not make errors, be strong under the high ball, strong carries, and to kick his goals. Also look at the big advantage to the Blues, I think, is the edge forwards. Like, Nanai is a questionable defender. Cotter is more comfortable in the middle. Fermor will come on. He's an Origin rookie, and they'll all be under assault when you consider the counterparts of Martin and Crichton. You know the lines they run. They're running off of Cleary and Moses, whichever way the ball goes. Let's talk about those halves, Padonis. I'm going to actually predict, though Nathan wears a 7, that Mitch will play more of a halfback role. I'm envisioning Mitch on the right, Nathan at 6. And I'm looking for Cleary to run the ball more a la 2023 grand final once Luai went off. Whereas I'm looking for Moses to raid short sides and to control the right-hand side. And I can definitely see Moses nipping down a short side, and he's got Crichton and Lomax at his disposal. I can see that sort of Parramatta connection, which is where I'm looking for a try. But any moment where they are hot and they get the defense on their heels, it's going to be, make or break tackles and decision making, particularly for Queensland. Well, Queensland's edge forwards and the centres as well. Well, what do you reckon about the choice of halves combo and how they'll play, Padonis?
Definitely think Laurie Daly might keep it up in the air, and you might see him switch around throughout the game. I would probably say that Cleary is going to defend on the right. Whether in attack they switch around and Cleary sort of plays more of a second receiver, that might happen. I'd probably see him more of a traditional 7 role, because I just think in the 40, I think he's going to be the primary kicker, short kicking game. So I think they do want him on his preferred side. But yeah, definitely it's going to be a tough one for Queensland to defend, play the ball in the middle of the field. You got Moses on one side, Cleary on the other. You got to defend both of them. You can't really pinpoint one. So they're such great players. It's just going to be epic test for Queensland.
So we've talked about the backs matchup, and now we're sort of into the halves. If we all agree that the Blues have got the better outside backs, then Benny, talk about this halves matchup, sort of Munster and DCE versus what you can say, if you're trying to knock the Blues, is an untested combination, though we understand the class of the two players that they're pairing up.
Yeah, so the thing for me is maybe Munster. Like he's one of those players that when he puts on the Queensland jersey, he's won it from before. And yeah, we've already talked about Harry Grant and what he can do, and he's literally put Queensland on the back before. Yeah, I think maybe it might be Munster's turn to try and be the one to step up and get it done, because I feel like you said, strike weapons wise, I've got Ponga. I think Munster's got to have a big game to get Queensland competitive, I think, against the Blues.
I sort of agree with the way Padonis sees it for Queensland. Like I don't see the Maroons having much of a chance if it's equal possession. If they have an equal amount of red zone trips, good ball opportunities, I feel like the Blues will come up with more points because they're just more deadly. So I feel like Maroons have to win the error count, like have to be more cautious with the ball, have to win the 6 again count, which you have a chance to at Suncorp, and tire the Blues out. And maybe you can score off the back of sustained possession and a tired opponent. Because I just, man for man, the Blues have more players that can sort of force a mistake and get a try out of nothing. You agree, Benny?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the teams as well. Like when you think about teams like ball and play, like Padonis was saying, I'm still looking at New South Wales team. Max King off the bench, like he's probably got one of the biggest motors. I think the only thing they do have going for him is having who's playing second row again? who usually
Huddy
plays in the
Young.
middle.
Nanai and Cotter.
Yeah, Cotter. Yeah, sorry, Cotter. Having Cotter in the second row might work well for them if they do defend well, because he's got a really big motor. But it's like you said, he's defending on an edge. It's completely different from being in the middle. So just see how that goes. And if he does defend well, it might work in their favour. But yeah, it's still hard for them to keep up with New South Wales with their bench.
That's what I worry about, the speed of Cotter. I know he's done a job there before, but even when Cotter's played second row before, one game where I think we lost Gilbert early, or he wasn't starting second row, but he just got thrust out there. It's not ideal because, you're going to be having to make a lot of decisions and you're going to get isolated out there, and you're coming up against international class. Like we've seen what Martin's done, winning 4 comps in a row with Penrith, and then Crichton was player of the series last year. Are there any other aspects of this matchup you want to key in on, Padonis? Benny touched on the interchange bench a little there. You can go there, or the forward matchup. We haven't really talked about the middles either.
Yeah, I think the way the middles are playing out, the Blues are fast and direct. They got big bodies. I think there was a lot of talk around some of the selections and not going with May, and I sort of feel that the way that the Blues want to play, they've got Max King and Haas that can play big minutes, so they're looking for impact guys off the bench. So wouldn't be surprised if you do see someone like maybe like Hudson Young playing in the middle for a little bit of a stint there, because we do know that all their back rows have played 80 minutes for club. I think Haas is going to churn out a good hour, and then interesting to see how they use Barnett. But I just think for the Maroons, it's going to be tough for them to be able to stay in the fight if they allow the Blues to make 60, 70-yard sets. So I think it does start coming off the kick return. So they've got Lomax and To'o and Edwards, are 3 of the best in the game. I think last year in Game 3, they really missed Evans with his 5th tackle kicking. I know that he's slowing down a little bit in age, but he still is one of the best long-distance kickers in the comp. So I think that will be one little edge to them compared to last year in that decider, because I think the fatigue ended up taking a toll on them when that game was 2-2 late into the last 15 minutes or so. I think the Blues are going to maybe start their sets a little bit further back than they did last year in that decider, and Evans will go a long way towards achieving that.
Am I having a mental block? Who was the halfback for Queensland in the decider last year? You're saying Cherry Evans didn't play?
Oh, sorry, Dearden and Evans. Yeah, I just think that last year they Dearden took a lot of kicks, whereas Munster isn't really a long distance kicker. So I think more of the onus will be on Evans this year. Sorry, not that he wasn't there last year. That the fact that they shared around with Dearden, who's a little bit of a weaker foot.
Now, Dearden is a wild card for me. I can see him coming on, because I don't think you take Grant off if Grant's hammy's all right. I can see him coming on sort of as 13 and basically being a third half, connecting with Munster on wide shifts out on the left side and coming on late in halves. And I think that could be pivotal and could be where the Maroons can find some points. I just put the team list up again. Sorry, Benny.
It's like a 30-minute super sub sort of thing coming on the 30th minute.
Yeah, I would want him on in the 30th because obviously the fatigue at the end of the half. And then, maybe at the end of the second half as well, if you're looking for points. But Dearden also, those undersized to play 13. But, you throw him out there in the middle, he's not going to let you down tackling-wise. I sort of like that if you're looking for points, what he might offer, as opposed to Connor Watson is very great utility value, will be the 1-2 punch at hooker, can certainly play lock. And you talk about certain players that are very capable of big minutes. But of course, you just never know who might get an HIA or an injury and who you have to, be able to replace. Certainly, the intensity is not going to drop when the Blues bench comes on. We know it's Lenu, it's Huddy Young, possibly Barnett comes off the bench. I could see a scenario where Max King actually gets the start, and Barnett could be that enforcer off the bench too. But what I have to say is I don't see a mismatch there with the middle forwards, though. Like, Queensland will hold their own in that department. When you get Tino back there, Paddy Carrigan, obviously, as Panonis would know, Brisbane's form's been very poor the last 6 weeks, but you just sort of know a player like Carrigan And I think that goes for a few in the Queensland team. I'm not concerned as a Queenslander that that Ponga's coming out of a struggling Knights team. Because I think when he gets higher quality teammates, he's going to rise to the occasion and Billy will get the best out of him. You know, Lindsay Collins, Fodawaker. I think that the Maroons can fight fire with the middle forwards. Where I'm much more concerned is the edges. And obviously, I'll say what I think about the halves too, because that's where I think the pressure is on. Because the Blues have got the better outside backs. The Blues have got the better edge forwards. And the Blues have got the better halves too. So there's massive pressure on someone like DCE, who is the captain, but is also 36 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's not getting any better. He's had a tumultuous year. Manly struggled a little bit lately, though Manly's like a hot and cold team too. You got Munster, who didn't play Origin last year, so that means he hasn't played since 23. So it's like 2 years where Munster hasn't played for the Kangaroos in that time either, I don't believe. That's 2 years out of the rep arena, and Queensland's screaming out for Munster to be at his best instantly. And Queensland needs their halves to play New South Wales near to a draw. I can't suggest that they'd outplay them, but they need to play. Like if the kicking game's immaculate for Cleary and Moses, it needs to be damn good as well, you know, by DCE. And that is where I look at Harry Grant, who you mentioned, Padonis, as he's going to have to play out of his skin to supplement what Queensland loses in the halves, and he's going to have to defend stoutly as well to help sort of tie the middle in together. Benny, is there a player, you can pick a player on either team who could be like your call for a man of the match or someone that you're predicting to just have a massive game?
Yeah, actually, that's sort of I'd prepared. Actually, was Latrell at $2.55 with Ladbrokes and $2.50 on PointsBet and BetRight. And yeah, man of the match as well for him, $21 at TAB, BetR, and BetRight. I think that would be my lean.
The scenario is that he does trample the poor.
Yeah, I think that's just sort of the script that I think it is likely. You know, he's a debutant. He could just drop his lollies, and it's Latrell, like you said. I didn't even know that stat, but he hasn't lost the Origin series yet. He wants to be the man. He wants to be in the spotlight. Yeah, I can see it happening.
Well, why don't I ask you as well, Padonis? You got like a man of the match pick, or just someone you think's in for a massive game and is key to their team winning?
Yeah, look, I don't really play many man of the match sort of style bets because it is high variance unless there's outstanding value. But I think the two that probably everyone will probably look at, if it's Queensland, I think it's Harry Grant. And for the Blues, I just think that this year is going to shape up for Nathan Cleary to really dominate and stamp his authority on the rep arena, because there's been some question marks around his form in the Blues jersey. But I definitely think that he is the best player in the world, and he's probably going to want to show that in what's going to be a hostile environment.
I sort of feel like if the premiership is out of reach, hey, there's no shame in only winning 4 premierships in a row. You're not a failure because you don't win it a 5th year. But in a sense, if the premiership's out of reach, it's like complete focus for Cleary can be on dominating this final frontier. And I think he gets a bad rap too, because Cleary has won multiple Origin games, man of the match award, at least one, multiple series. And it's almost like you'd think, oh, well, Ivan won't have the luxury of resting Penrith players and stuff. But if he understands it's for the good of the Blues and a couple of these Panthers rep players, you know, would be better off without a short turnaround backup, they could still do what's best for, you know, the New South Wales Blues to win a series, for Nathan to dominate a series. A year ago, I tipped Mitch Moses as Wally Lewis medal, and he wasn't in the game 1 team, but I explained how it could happen because he just missed through injury. He could come back in game 2 if New South Wales lost, and he could lead the Blues to a series win, and he did, and he was 200-1, and he was the player of the series. And I'm still not quite sure how Angus Crichton got it ahead of him. Because Crichton scored in game 1 when they lost or something? Or people said because Crichton played all 3, he deserved it. But for me, Moses was 2 from 2. Had the ceiling try, you know, masterclass in game 2. So, yes, I'm still a little bit salty. Bring it up because, you know, Padonis, you mentioned Cleary. I wouldn't be looking at a 200-1 at this point. I would be looking at probably like $7 about Cleary for Wally Lewis. Not every bookie has put up that market, but I did see that on Ladbrokes. Have you guys got any other angles we can sort of officially share predictions. But Benny, was there any other like factors or angles of this game that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, it's a hard one because if it was a Suncorp game 2, I'd be all over overs. But I feel like the game 1s are just always a little bit tighter. Usually they're sort of feeling each other out, trying to get the combinations right as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a hard one with the total. I think if anything, maybe second half total high scoring. I haven't really looked at the dollar values there in the bookies, but yeah, you usually get that around the $1.80, $1.90 mark. So yeah, that'd probably be my lean. I think would be the second half high scoring.
You definitely feel like any game, especially series opener. I'm glad you brought up the total there because people would definitely be interested that, yeah, the openers are always so tight and there is a feeling out process. But I look at the lineups of both these sides and I do see a lot of points because I look at someone like Jeremiah Nanai. He can create a try with an offload or scoring for a high ball, but he can also get beat for one as well. And like the class in the Blues side, like there's points in him. So Queensland's going to have to play outstanding to match it with him. But honest, you got a read on the total? 39.
Yeah, I was gonna make a point there to say that as we just read one of the comments, Ryan Whitaker says if he's picking Queensland to win, Grant man of the match. And I just had a quick look now. Better probably have the best price in the market. Grant's at $19 for man of the match if you do think he'll have a good game. But back to the total, I think I was going to actually make a point there. I actually think the total's a little bit low. I know that game ones are tighter, but I expected to see this in the low 40s, but it's at 38.5. We know that Queensland up there at Suncorp, it's a drier, faster track than what we typically see over in a core down here in Sydney. And I just think that there's more X factor in this game than what we did see in game 3 last year. Look at guys like Munster, who wasn't there last year, Latrell Mitchell, Stephen Crichton, who's had an X factor potential on him all season. I just think that there's more points in the game. Probably going to be tight for long periods, but if I was betting the total, I could only look to an over, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
That's sort of how I felt too, just in terms of the matchup. But Dan Slang told me Origin series openers just generally are unders, but the style of footy this year as well, teams are putting on a lot of points. Look, You've stolen my thunder absolutely there. That was going to be my pick. I just checked again. Like I've got Grant here at 17s, unless he's just come down since you started talking about Grant might be the man for Queensland.
But yeah, as he said it.
Yes, but I'll tip him at $17 on better because Grant is as low as $11 elsewhere. And you and I both outlined why Harry Grant would be pivotal for Queensland, and it's one of the few positions where there should be a clear edge to the Queenslanders, and he is like an absolute class player, the Melbourne Storm captain, and would have to dominate. I've sort of covered my points. I'm happy to put a bow on it with a bit more of a prediction, guys, but is there anything else you want to touch on? Otherwise, Benny, give us sort of any other factors you're seeing in this game, and then give us the winner, the margin, and your man of the match. Oh, you said Latrell.
Yeah, I'll go Queensland as well. Luke just touched on it there. Munster for mine. I think I do love Harry Grant. Don't get me wrong. I think you probably maybe put money on both of them, play a bit of that. But yeah, I think Munster is not a bad shout as well. I think if Queensland win, it's going to be a lot to do with him. I think that's probably another way of playing if a Queensland win. Yeah, definitely like the overs. Like you said, maybe a second half overs as well if you want to hit it like that. But yeah, Munster's.
So give me your final score then. Even though you're saying Munster's a good value option if Queensland win, but it sounds like you're leaning towards the Blues.
Yeah, mate, it's hard to put I don't want to say he's going to win, but I'll go 24-22 New South Wales.
With Latrell man of the match.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, when you make a prediction, you got to say who's going to win. But yeah, the line's 2.5, so that that's fair enough. You're seeing it similar to what the market suggests, and you are trending overs, but you're worried about a tight start. So I think the way you're explaining it is either second half higher scoring, or you'll get second half over 19.5 points, something like that. Or since you like the Blues, a Blues team total or a Blues second half team total, if you really want to get in the weeds. But honest, I'm going to put you on the spot, ask the same question. Your score prediction and your New South Wales man of the match.
Yep, no problem. Well, I'm going to stick with Harry Grant to be the man of the match. And for the prediction for me in this game, I've seen Queensland, the last 5 series that they've lost, they've come back and won game 1 5 out of the last 5 times. So I think Queensland do win, and it's hard to say that as a Blues supporter, but I think they are going to do enough just to get it done. I think the Blues are going to get better as the series goes on. I think when you look at Laurie Daly, he's coming into the Origin Arena for his first time in the last 10 years. I think it's going to take a while to gel with the combination, even though they're elite players, but we're talking small percentages between Moses and Cleary. I think they're going to be better as the series goes on. I just think Queensland are going to be dialed in at home from game 1, and I would predict them to win, and I'll probably lean towards them on the plus 2.5 as well. I think the score is going to be 26-18 to Queensland.
Have you got a Blues man of the match if the Blues get up?
Cleary.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting you say that the Blues could get improvement, but if the Blues lose game 1, of course, then there's a lot of pressure for who's the scapegoat. Like, do you stick with the team that loses? Like, people are saying, would you give Moses and Cleary more than one game? I know the media loves to sort of heap pressure.
Yeah.
And if the forwards get run over, why wasn't Terrell May there? And if the halves come up short, it would have been a better combination with Luai. Everyone will say Moses and Cleary didn't work. And then it'll be a question of whether Laurie sort of sticks to his guns. So you're going Queensland. So am I. But I am admittedly I'm biased, where the two boys joining me are both from New South Wales. That's right, Benny. I know you live not far from me, but
yeah, I do. I grew up in New South Wales though. With when I started playing footy, if I made it to the NRL, I'd be playing New South Wales. So
beautiful.
Well, you don't, just because you grow up in New South Wales, you can still choose to represent Queensland if you want to. It's all right. We'll still have you.
Look at Inglis. That's all right.
Yeah, that's all right.
So we got good balance on this show anyway, guys. But when I'm not confident, I'll admit it. When I'm not confident, I tip Queensland by 1. And Harry Grant, my man of the match. So I'll tip Queensland 19-18. Even though that would be a slight under. That's just going back to sort of my game 1 trend. Look, a couple of specials I actually reckon are good value too, depending on which side you like. So these are the daily doubles. So they've bundled 3 of the most important players for each state, and it actually is just good odds, like better odds than what you get sort of playing 3 individually. So for the Blues, it's Cleary, Moses, or Edwards. Like, you're not going to be far off it if the Blues win. That's 375. And for the Maroons, it's DCE, Munster, or Grant. You spoke, Benny, about Munster. Podonis and I have mentioned Harry Grant, and of course, DCE does most of the kicking. It's going to have to be elite as well, and he's that's 450 for that bundle, and you can have up to 25 on that on Dabble, and that's like the last place where the pod earns any fraction of earnings. So if you still need a Dabble account, guys, you can use the code TryPod. And I'll share, a same gamer or more if I find anything else I like closer to the day. I can let pod listeners know next show will be on Thursday. So I'm not going to preview round 13 until after Origin. The players are eligible to back up. So you sort of need to know what comes out in the wash there, and we can talk a little bit about what's happened. But I'm tied up with work Thursday night. So I actually think I'm going to release the round 13 preview like around the middle of the day on Thursday, which I know does not suit many people, but you're just going to find it in your feed when you find it. And it'll be out there ahead of round 13. Boys, is anything else you want to leave us with? I really appreciate you both making the time on a Sunday night, especially giving our followers a different voice, and obviously enjoy getting your clips with your favorite tip of the week. But it's great to get to give you a chance to sort of expand on your handicapping. But honest, I'll give you next word.
Yeah, mate, all good. So just looking at a couple exotic bets for people that like to look at a few longer shots. I'd probably look at a few options like for Queensland to fight fire with fire, they're going to have to throw the ball around and they're going to have to attack at will. and be able to have no fear against some of these Blues outside back. So I think I'd be looking at some exotics around first half, Queensland race to 10. That's $3 on Bet365. That's essentially saying that they're going to be the first to score 2 tries. And then given that the total is pretty low, and we've seen Origins sort of hint around that total, and you might be 1 or 2 legs short, but I think you should look at something like Queensland race to 15. That's another market that I'd be looking at if you do think that if you favour the Maroons. That's around $2 on Bet365 and Sportsbet. Because getting to 20 means either 3 tries with a penalty goal, 4 tries, and with a 38 total, much rather prefer to see them get to 15, because if it finishes 19-18 as Winnie's predicting, hopefully that can cash for you. But yeah, I'd be looking at some exotics around that. And you could also look at your ones, Winnie, to win by exactly 1 or 2 margins as well.
Do like that, especially if if that includes Golden Point. When was the last Origin Golden Point? I feel like it's been quite a while.
It's been a while. Back in the Cronk days, maybe.
So, yeah, could that be on the cards? Because I do feel like if we all agree the Blues are a little bit better, then the closest game could be the first game. I did have another point, actually. So I was going to say, I was going to go as far to say, if Queensland lose game 1, it's a whitewash. So I believe, and you got to let me know if you disagree, if Queensland loses game 1, it's most likely 3-0 Blues. So I think if you like the Blues, guys, and I'll give you the next word, Benny, because you've picked the Blues, even albeit narrowly. If you like the Blues on Wednesday night, just consider $3.85 also on Dabble for Blues 3-0. Because I'm sort of anticipating what the pricing will be, and it's sort of like $1.70, $1.75 on Wednesday. Then we go to Perth, and if the Blues are coming off a win, I think they're going to be $1.50. And then if it's 2-0 New South Wales, and with that opportunity for a sweep, and you go to Sydney, there'll be a celebration around the team, then I can see the Blues coming out being $1.35, $1.40, So if you see it that way, where it only gets more lopsided in each game, $3.85 actually is a good price. What do you think about like a series correct score, Benny?
Yeah, like prediction-wise, if New South Wales lose this, I'd love to be on probably next week. But yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. I think I always try and go with the 6 again and try not to include anything else. But since 2020, I think there's been 2 2-0s, and then I think the other team has won that last game though. I don't think we've got a whitewash on the 6 again. Is that right?
No, they are very rare, to be fair. But I can sort of see like the combination of the fact that if New South Wales is in that position, that then that game comes home and it's a rare opportunity and the talent could just be too great. So I could see a scenario where, and of course, nothing stopping you sort of going game by game. A lot of us, we'd love to back the team that's down 1-0 in game 2 for sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are years where one side's just a lot better than the other. And if you feel like if the Blues are good enough to win in Brisbane on Wednesday, then I wouldn't doubt them to win anywhere for the rest of the series. So that's why I'm saying, like, that's why to me this opener feels like a decider, because I can't see Queensland winning the series without taking game 1, which just, is one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to it so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a must-win for Queensland because, you don't want to be playing a decider at a core, I think, regardless.
And lots of great comments coming through. Padonis, you want to take that one on the screen?
Well, was there any official best bet shared or just predictions? So I think if I was going to share a best bet, I'd probably buck the trend a little bit with the first halves. I'd go Queensland over 6.5 points in the first half. That's one that I was going to share and post in the group. That's $1.85 on Bet365. I just think that they have to start the game fast, and you could easily get a try and a penalty goal to cash that. And if they're going to beat their total 17.5 anyway, as a team total, you're going to expect them to at least score 1 or 2 tries in the first half.
That's a good call. Thanks for asking that question, clarifying. I actually meant the question that was on the display, Padonis.
Oh,
you can weigh in on it. if you
Have you
want.
tried,
Yeah,
tried
no,
getting
thanks for
paid? I've seen
clarifying.
that come
What
through.
what I like about your pick there, Padonis, is like teams are way more likely to take the 2 than a normal game. So you can very easily get over 6.5 points with one try. Look, to clarify, I have not found a best bet in this game because I do agree that the Blues should be, narrow favourite, and I've sort of got conflicting factors as to whether I like over or under. And as I said, like I explained why the Blues are superior, but there are those other angles as to why Queensland could match it in game one. And like, I'm not a full out conspiracy theorist, but I'd be surprised if Queensland gets the, what's the expression? If Queensland doesn't get the rub of the green, you know what I mean? Like, you sort of, you're not telling the ref to give the game to Queensland, but you'd say, boy, it'd be disappointing if you give Queensland a few dud calls and it sort of kills the series in game one. It'd be, if you have to get a call wrong, or if you have to go 50-50 on something, it's better to go the home team, because the Blues are still more than capable of coming back, keeping the series alive, as they did last year as well. So that, like this year, I've gone best bet on roughly like every second game. I just didn't pick one in this. Benny, you've mentioned the Latrell as an anytime scorer, second half higher. You've certainly mentioned lots of angles. You given anything official now, or you want to post in the group when you narrow down exactly?
Nothing official, because I just think it's just hard to cap, because like you said, and I believe this, that the 50-50 calls will definitely go Queensland's way. I think I'm trying not to say that with bias, but it is that some call. I think if it's a 50-50, it's going to get called Queensland's way. So it just makes me a bit wary to take anything with that sort of dynamic. I'd rather come out a game where I don't think any of those powers to be are going to come into play.
Which is why I think if you back the Blues in this and you lay the 2.5 or whatever, you have to believe they're just so much better that they'll overcome not getting as many 6 agains, or the 1 or 2 50-50s, or a presser relieving penalty, whatever it is, a bunker call on a try. You basically, like, when one team's just way better than the other, there's nothing the refs can do about it. So if you've got that level of confidence in the Blues, you'll be backing them. But if you sort of can see a lot of those intangibles making it tighter, then we just could be in for a ripper where it could be in the balance with 10 minutes to go. That's everything. Yeah, that's everything I had, boys. You got anything else to share? Otherwise, we'll get out of here under the hour mark. Benny, you got anything else for us?
Nah, I think I've covered everything I sort of wanted to chip in. So
cool. Well, I look forward to seeing what your angle is for round 13 as well. I'm sure you'll sort of share a post in the group like Thursday or Friday. And you can factor in Origin as well, because there's always like the suspension or an injury as well that is going to affect a team, in the upcoming round. Adonis, I'll give you the final word.
Yeah, mate, just one more final thing for me. I hope Madge Maguire watches intently on Wednesday night and sees how good Carrigan plays at lock, and if I can keep him in the 13 jersey.
I agree as well. I think, Carrigan is a class 13, has won a Wally Lewis medal for Queensland before. And in this, well, I don't know if Cotter potentially would have played lock if Queensland had more second row options. But I'm looking forward to Carrigan. I thought you were going to say as well about Madge. Is he watching this game and thinking, I could have been coaching these superstars instead of these TikTokers and blokes that don't want to train, that have lost 5 of their last 6 in Brisbane.
And boxers now as well, don't forget, Winnie.
Yeah, well, let's hope for your sake Brisbane can show a bit of fight back this year, like Walshy can in his TikToks. You've got Walsh to come back in. You've got Ben Hunt's going to come back into the team. Cobbo, when he recovers from that injury, or they said the scans weren't too serious. The season's not lost. You're 5-6, but it's just the pressure cooker of Brisbane. The fact that Madge, because he's so intense, usually gets results early, but wears people out. If Madge is not getting the results early, do the players keep buying in? Do they keep, accepting the sprays and getting flogged? They're not getting the results. Maybe I'll give you one more final word, but honestly, your prediction, where does Brisbane finish this year?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Without trying to be too biased, but I sort of would like to take the benefit of the doubt that he's learned from his experiences over the last 10 years, and that he isn't burning the players out early. And maybe the reason Brisbane are struggling is not a fitness issue. Maybe that he's actually trying to time it a little bit better to not peak early in the year and have them peaking after Origin. Or that's the way we'd like to hope it is anyway for all Brisbane supporters out there. But I definitely think that was still good enough to make the 8. I think that game 3 weeks ago against the Bull, or 4 weeks ago now against the Bulldogs at Suncorp, that first half really showed the level that the side can get to. It's just more about applying that on a consistent basis. But I think Brisbane will slip into the 8 in that 5 to 8 range. And if we're in form at the end of the year with all our players fit, I think no team's going to want to play us, that's for sure.
You know what? I think my Finns are going to get in the 5 to 8 range. And I've said all season long, I believe that's a finals caliber team, although the Finns lost, the first 3 or 4 straight this season. Big win over the Dogs. Benny, you're an East man, right?
Mm.
And when the Roosters played the Broncos, it was like men against boys in round 1 and a 50 spot put on you in your opening game. Who would have thought we'd sit here now, you've got the same record as the Broncos. In fact, all of our teams, Brisbane, the Finns, and the Roosters, all have 5 wins after 12 rounds. You've also got your halfback still to come back into the team. So is there optimism from yourself?
Yeah, it's hard because, I don't even know where you put Walker. They're both playing so well at the moment, the Hugo and the 6. Yeah,
I'd put him at 7. I'd definitely put him at 7.
You would, yeah. I don't know. Hugo's long kicking game has been just unreal. You definitely have Walker back in there. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a bit hard done by him. But I'm surprised how well the Roosters have been going, to be honest, considering how bad our start was. So, but it seems like a season like this. I think, like I said, I think we talked about riding off the Panthers. I don't know. It's such a tight comp. Like maybe even they could still make the 8 from where they are.
Yeah, the thing is,
but
the Cowboys, it's funny. The Cowboys have got 4 wins and a draw, and the Panthers have got 3 wins, and the Cowboys are 7th. The Panthers are 17th. But what's going to hurt the Panthers is the 5 players playing Origin as well, not being able to pace themselves through the year. But you're sort of right as well. Can't remember which one of you boys said it about maybe put on us. Every fan base has some hope still.
Yep.
Maybe outside. And if you're Penrith, you still know that's the heart of a champion. If you're a Titans fan, that's tough. But at least you got the bye this week. Parramatta showing more signs. Knights had to win on the weekend. Yeah, Dolphins are 13th, but I know I'm biased, but I reckon we're like the 6th best team in the comp. A couple weeks ago, I thought we were the best team in the comp. But they've shown some high-level footy, scoring 40 straight points against the Storm and the Bulldogs. No other team's done that. The Tigers, at least they get closure on the Galvin situation. So, maybe there's a bit of a galvanizing effect. I know we've sort of overdone that one. And then you go, Roosters. Look, Dragons and Seagulls are 9th and 10th. I wouldn't probably want to be on either of those this year. Brisbane, as bad as they've been, still find themselves in the top 8. So, a lot of footy to go. But quite often you do see the Origin series does have an influence on the regular season as well, because you're putting all the best players into sort of modern warfare, and not everybody gets through it. So a lot of clubs sort of hold their breath when they watch these games as well. Benny, you've got more players from your 11th place Roosters than most other clubs doing battle on Wednesday. So you got to hope that they're in harm's way, that they get through the game.
Yeah, well, that's it. When were we playing? I'm just having a look at that now. Panthers look like they got a decent run through the draw, though, Origin-wise. I don't know if it's just me or...
Roosters, Canberra next weekend, Benny.
We got Canberra, yeah. It's
a big one.
I think it's far enough from the Origin that surely it won't be too much of a...
Yeah, not so much the backup, but just, you hold your breath that like what Swaliti did 7 minutes into the series last year, and then that wipes him out of multiple club games as well.
Sorry, on
that with the send-offs and the sin bins and the crackdown they had of the head highs, what do you reckon is going to happen in the Origin? Are we going to get any if we get that shoulder direct to the head, is it going to be 10 in the bin, or what do you reckon they're going to do?
Look, I don't mind the way they've policed it in the last 2 or 3 weeks. They went over the top for a couple of weeks there, where any collision, the brush above the shoulders. But I feel like now it's been more reasonable, and I think they would tend to be more reasonable as well because it's such a high price to pay to have a player off. But probably leaning back to what I said before, a lot of those sin bins are decided by the bunker when they've had a look at it. And if it's 50-50, does it go Queensland's way and gives us something to talk about? There was just a side note today, while the Raiders hung on and won, there was an incident similar to the Pappenhausen one where Starling puts the hit on Harris Tavita, and it was a penalty to the Warriors, and the Raiders challenged it, and because of the challenge review, it ended up being a sin bin, similar to the Pappenhausen incident a few weeks ago.
I think he was always going in the bin, though, wasn't he?
No, the ref did not.
I thought the ref just didn't get time to do it. That was my
whether the bunker would have chimed in anyway, but it initially was. He said late contact, but he wasn't saying that it was sort of direct. Then you see the replay, and Starling jumped and got him in the head, and the Raiders hung on anyway. Brave win, tough game for you next week. And what I was about to say before was, honestly, I could chat to you boys all night, but look at that, we've already got a part.
Sorry, we need one final word on Origin.
Sorry?
One final word on Origin. I don't think we touched on it at the start. The injury doubts around Crichton and Haas. I think both are going to play, but there is some doubt around both those guys. So if you like Queensland for all those guys out there, I'd play them now because the Lions factored that they are in the team. If one of them pull out, then you'll probably see this come into 1.5 or pick them. That's
a fair call. Look, when I heard as a Queensland fan, you never want to see players get injured, but I was like, Haas and Stephen Crichton, that would be pretty handy. Two of the very best players in the world. But then certainly sounded like the Crichton injury was minor. They said he'd train, he's been training already. The Haas one, there is that little bit more doubt, and I would get a little bit more confidence. So I think you're right there. Maybe this line's probably not going to get to 4 on game day, so you might want to wait as a Blues fan till an hour or two before kickoff and make sure all your troops are there and back that. I like that sort of advice on execution. Whereas, look, there is a risk, of course, of a training mishap, or there was whispers that Nane could be hurt for Queensland, but there's always sort of whispers out of the Queensland camp too. But if you do probably 2 plus 2.5 is fairly generous about Queensland. I've said at the start of this show that the Blues look to have the better team, but I don't think that Queensland's totally mismatched. And it starts in the forwards, and I actually think, Queensland can step up there and give us a barn burner of a series opener. David's been trolling us all night and said, what's the odds you're going to end in profit? These are the two
I've been laughing at his percentages
in the pod that I've ever seen, guys.
What price? No of you 3 cunts make a profit at the end of this.
David, mate, I mean, you may have tipped all 5 favourites this weekend, and you could be a little bit salty. And on that note, it's 5 underdogs won in round 12. Let's hope that a 6th one wins on Wednesday night. All right, we better get out of here. We'll be here all night, boys. I really appreciate you taking the time, jumping in with me, sharing your thoughts on the games. Always welcome. We'll get you in for more big games throughout the year, and we'll get your tips as often as we can each week with your favourite plays for the upcoming round. So thanks again for Donis, Sideline Sharp, and Benny from Benny and the Bets. Have a good week, guys, and enjoy the game. Go Queensland.
Thanks,
Lego.
Thanks,